Hello everyone, this is Skylar with the last video of this 5-video series for this Constitution Day. I hope you've enjoyed them thus far. And just so you know, if you have any questions, desire for clarification or sources or whatever, please contact me through the website. Now, and keep in mind, these are short videos. There's so much more information pertaining to each of these questions. And so I hope this is only the beginning of your personal journey to understand the Constitution and, more importantly, the principles of freedom behind it. So how should the Constitution be interpreted? First, it should be interpreted in harmony with the principles of the Declaration of Independence, in harmony with the principles of good government. And is there any other standard by which we should and could hold civil government accountable than by the laws of nature and of nature's God? And of course, if these two were meant to be completely separate, that would kind of contradict the American experiment generally. Think about it. Why even declare independence on those grounds if we were to turn around and institute a system not based on those principles or opposed to those principles? Of course, it's their imperfect attempt at creating government in harmony with those principles. But if that was their intent, then that's the standard we should hold, as opposed to the Constitution in and of itself. So, and keep in mind, at the very end of the Constitution, it even ties itself to the Declaration and the dating of the document. Now, the second issue, generally, is a matter of interpretation, philosophy of interpretation, the Declaration being the ultimate philosophy. But let's get into some of the details of the debate that is typically had on this. The narrative is typically original intent versus the living Constitution. Both terms not being oversimplified, and I don't think being very reflective of the category of arguments that come with them. I don't think it was the original intent of the founders to have the Constitution merely be a historical document. And I don't like the insinuation that if I'm not for the living Constitution as interpreted by Republicrats and progressives in any form, that the principles I champion are somehow dead. I think that they are true in every time. In fact, I think they're the principles that bring about better living in the end. So, okay. I think this is an A or B fallacy, a false alternative, to say original intent or living Constitution. You pick. I think I'm going to take on both of these. Okay, as far as the living Constitution or loose constructionism, if the Constitution can mean anything, then it means nothing. It can mean whatever anyone wants, then it's almost valueless. Why even have a Constitution at all, let alone a written one that's meant to be known? Why not have it be precedent-oriented like the British system? Or a matter of decrees? So, that is bunk, in my opinion, and unfortunately it was that view of the Constitution, even in terms of Alexander Hamilton's arguments, was only made in relation to his own political agenda with the National Bank. If you look at his arguments in The Federalist, he argues for strict constructionism. Now, original intent. If you just look at intent, you're only going to be right when the founders were right and wrong when they were wrong. It should be about principles, the principles of the Declaration, which are perfect, not about people that may have, on certain issues, an incomplete understanding or at that point in time an inability to apply those principles to that particular situation. So, but was it even their intent to restrict us to what they could foresee or to what they had in mind? I don't think so at all. I think that another way of even looking at this is that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, in and of themselves, were attempts at a principle-based means to aid in a more free society. They were a means to help achieve a more free society, not ends in and of themselves. Once again, forms being secondary to principle. That goes for people as well. I think a great analogy, as presented in this book, it's a great book, Constitutional Interpretation, by two brilliant professors, James E. Fleming and Professor Barber. They're quoting Ronald Dworkin, though. There's another brilliant professor. Here's the analogy. Here's a good thought experiment in regards to original intent of the U.S. Constitution. Suppose I tell my children simply that I expect them not to treat others unfairly. I no doubt have in mind examples of the conduct I mean to discourage, but I would not accept that my meaning was limited to these examples for two reasons. First, I would expect my children to apply my instructions to situations I had not and could not have thought about. Second, I stand ready to admit that some particular act I had thought was fair when I spoke was in fact unfair, or vice versa. If one of my children is able to convince me of that later, in that case, I should want to say that my instructions covered the case he cited, not that I had changed my instructions. I might say that I meant the family to be guided by the concept of fairness, not by any specific conception of fairness I might have had in mind. And here's their commentary. It's dead on. Dworkin points out that had the children's thinking for themselves not been consistent with their father's instructions, he would have meant something quite different from what he said. He would have meant not treat others fairly, but do as I say fairness demands. In the latter case, what's uppermost in the father's mind isn't fairness, or his children's being fair or their reputations for fairness. It's his authority, I would say, power, over his children. And I think that when you take that original intent approach, absent this moral approach to the Constitution, viewing it not only as a federal compact with historical features, which should be taken into consideration, I'm not saying they shouldn't, but that we neglect the fact that it is also a compact, a charter of moral commitments. It almost puts the founders in a light more inconsistent with freedom than without it, without that mindset. In other words, they weren't trying to rule everyone and to rule posterity. In fact, to quote who I consider the father of the American Republic, Thomas Paine, listen to this, what he had to say. I like this. But where, says some, is the King of America? I'll tell you, and this is before the Declaration, or the Constitution, by the way. Friend, he reigns above. Our King is the Lord, and the law that he champions, and doth not make havoc of mankind like the royal brute of Britain. Keep in mind, people thought the king had religious authority from Adam to rule the people. Yet that we may not appear to be defective even in earthly honors, let a day be solemnly set apart for proclaiming the charter. Let it be brought forth, placed on the divine law, the word of God. Let a crown be placed thereon, by which the world may know that so far as we approve of monarchy, that in America the law, natural law, the laws of nature and of nature's God, is king. For as in absolute governments the king is law, so in free countries the law ought to be king, and there ought to be no other. But lest any ill use should afterwards arise, let the crown at the conclusion of the ceremony be demolished and scattered among the people whose right it is. Brilliant. It is, at the end of the day, the individual. This is for people in a voluntary way to help secure their freedom so they are better able to pursue happiness, and as well as a system, hopefully, that will protect the same freedom indefinitely into the future for their posterity. But they're not limiting us to what they could conceive at the time. If you think of free speech as only meaning what was intended or what they could foresee in 1791, then it wouldn't apply to modern forms of communication and speech, phones and the like, that didn't exist at the time. But you take the concept of free speech and you bring it to now. And it applies eternally. It applies in any time amongst any people. But keeping in mind that natural law is eternal, and that at the end of the day, this is for us, the people, the root of both the authority and the power for any good government. So I hope you enjoyed this series, and have a good Constitution Day.